by way of introduction, I'm Dan Kogan. I'm the Strategic Engagement Manager for the SharePoint engineering team in Redmond. I've been part of the product group for well over 19 years. So that 2003 and the 2001 product, I was involved in those. I was involved in the stuff that Microsoft acquired in 2001 before that. So I've been in this space as part of the engineering team for well over 20 years in some way. So that's who I am.
And I'm Bert Janssen. I'm a senior service engineer working in a customer engineering group, also in product group. And our team is focusing on helping our biggest customers adopt the latest and greatest of SharePoint. And based on that, we have a lot of questions around modernization, and that's why I'm here, talk about modernization. How can you move from the old to the new?
So with that, the first question we always get, because I spend all my day talking to people about why they should be using Modern and how they should go to Modern and when they're going to Modern, and I push people to Modern, and everybody gets scared and says, well, does that mean Classic is going away? No. So I want to be really clear. Classic is not going away. Now, hopefully by the end of the hour, we will have convinced you why it's in your interest and why there's all sorts of value in going to Modern. But Classic is not going away. This gentleman here is still running 2003, so that proves to you that the stuff will persist. Of course, it's no longer supported, but separate problem. But Classic is fully supported. It is not going away. So I want to just make that really clear. Okay? And with that, we want to just get to the point really quickly. So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will pass this off to Bert. We're going to set up the context of what it is we're going to be talking about, and then we'll come back and talk about the nuts and bolts.
Yes, so demo first. What you see here is a classic customized team site. So let's quickly walk over what's inside the site. So first of all, it has a custom theme. So a classic custom SharePoint theme, you know, you could put like a custom font, custom colors, custom background, just like a nice drone background image. Homepage is customized. What else do we see? We see a custom footer. Like, this is a very common requirement. Many people create custom footers, custom headers in their sites. In Classic, you could do this, and you see an example over here.
Can't hear. Let's get your mic up closer, and then you have to yell. Or can we turn his volume up? Is there some audio people in the room? No. Okay.
Better now?
Yes.
Yes?
You can yell.
I try to yell. I'm not good at yelling, though, but let's try. OK, so custom page. Now, what else do we have? We have a custom list. And this list is showing colors as a kind of a color box. This is done using JSLink. Can you raise hands? Who is still using JSLink? Only a few, really?
Is that because you can't hear the question or because you're really not using JSLink? Who's using JSLink? Okay. I feel like we have a mic problem.
No, but like last year, I asked the same question, and like half of the room raised their hands. I was kind of generally blown away, like, really? And I was like, yeah, okay, maybe, but actually that's a good thing. Meaning that means that you already are using probably more modern customization. So I like that. All right, what else? We have some pages. A classic SharePoint site typically uses wiki pages, but you can also have web part pages. So here we have a couple of pages. Let me pick out one of them, like this D95 one. Let's load it up. It looks like a wiki page with some formatted content, an Excel web part in there, an Excel file showing up. All custom stuff, custom pages. There's a web part page with some other content as well. So there's this one. Kind of, yeah, your typical team site, I would say. Now, to what extent can we modernize this team site? How can we take this classic, but still fully functional, fully supported thing, how can we take this one forward into a modern team site that looks the same, works the same, is exactly the same as something that you would create from scratch? That's the goal. Now, this is a level 300 session, so there will be some code. In this case, it will be PowerShell code. Now, just to save some time, I'm going to kick off a script that will modernize this site, and while the script is running, we'll have an actual look at the code. So let me launch the script first. It's asking me the site to modernize, so let me copy the URL over here.
Where does somebody get that script?
That script is available in the community under a link that I will share in a second, but it's called, if you go to https://ak.ms/spnp-modernize.
We will share that link, don't worry.
Yep, there's a
You
slide
didn't
going.
get that? I didn't see anybody writing.
Well, I saw people starting to write. So. Next thing, if you, one of the things we will do is group connect. We'll talk about it in a second, but essentially we are going to add an Office 365 group to this team site. A group requires a name, a unique name. So let's give it a unique name, Modernize 02. Will this be a public or private group? Let's go for a private group. And I didn't configure classification labels. Potentially you would configure a classification label as well. Hitting enter. Now this starts to run. And it looks not red, so that's good. So let's actually move over to the code real quick. This is the script that we mentioned that is shared, that is available for you. Consider this as being like a sample script, something for you to start with. It's a baseline for you to build your own tailored script to modernize a site collection. Now I just want to highlight some of the features of the script, some things that we do. First of all, we are actually enabling the modern features if they're not yet enabled, like enabling modern pages. And we also are disabling potential modern blocking features, because you might have blocked modern for a certain reason in the past. If you did so, the script will undo. Next, we move on. Remember that we had a footer in our page, and we had those color boxes based on JS Link. These are classic customizations. Now, classic customizations do not work on modern pages. And we want to have a modern site with modern pages, so, well, we need to do something about those customizations. So what we'll do is we are installing SharePoint framework-based customizations that do something equivalent. They have the same functionality, but they work on a modern page. So what you see here is that we are installing a custom footer with a SharePoint framework application using a PnP PowerShell script and commands. And we are installing the custom field formatter. So the color boxes that you saw will be replaced by a SharePoint framework field customizer that does the same thing. Furthermore, we'll do some branding cleanup, switch back to the default master page, remove potential alternate CSS. So any old style of branding will be kind of undone. And in our case, we switch to a company team. So we can have those company-wide teams, modern teams, that you can apply to all your site collections. And that's a really good technique to have a consistent branding across your enterprise. So let's use that. In this case, the set PnP web team will actually make that happen for you. And just to wrap up, final aspects here is page transformation. Those wiki pages, those web art pages that we looked at, there is today no automatic way inside SharePoint Online itself, but there's an open source component that does help you transform those pages from the classic world into the modern world. So essentially, we read the classic page and output something modern, which works and looks similar, not identical, because the modern page is slightly different from an architectural perspective, from a way of working than the classic page. Classic web parts are different than modern web parts, but the tool will do like a mapping and get both combined. And then there's some kind of further more cleaning up stuff, etc. So it's a pretty big script, but take the time to run over it and investigate in it. It's a really good starting base for your work. Now let's see if this ended well. Actually, I don't see any red. Good sign, it's done. Let's go back to this one, to my portal. Now, I'm going to refresh, just hit the home page. And what we see here is a modern site. The same site in place, modernized.
Oh, come on, that's pretty cool, right?
Right. So
there's a question there, yes.
Does this work for Oslo-based master pages?
Question is, does it work for other master pages like Oslo?
Yeah.
The answer is that modern pages, modern UI does not use the master page at all. So whether we have Oslo or Seattle as a master page, it's kind of neglected. We're not using it. So
the page model in Modern is very different. So the concept of a master page doesn't exist, which is one of the challenges that people have going from classic to modern, which is why tools like this get you to an approximation of what you had in the new structure.
But in the 2015 structure, I'm using Oslo.
Correct.
When we migrate it to the cloud in classic mode, will it still be Oslo?
right, yes, classic,
And then
yes.
this technology-
Correct. So you will use the classic master pages when you moved to the cloud, and then when you take the next step using this approach, you will drop the notion of master pages.
Right. So the same site using Oslo will be perfectly upgraded to modern, and
So the menu options will show across the top, not down the.
no, they will be left. Team sites are left.
Okay.
Okay,
We got questions. So the questions are good. We're here for this. So we decided to make sure we have time for questions. So we'll do a few as we go along. Yes. Do you do the subsites too if you do the base site collection?
The script can do subsites. You have to run it on a subsite, but essentially a subsite is a set of libraries, pages. So yeah, should work.
Yes, sir. Sir, we'll take this question, then we'll keep going. Yes.
My question is like this modern experience is only available online, or can you do this like the 2016 on-prem?
So the question is this only for online? The answer is yes and no. So modern experiences as such are available for SharePoint 2019 on-prem. So if you're on-prem, you can switch to modern. The no part is the current tooling that you saw is not fully functional on-prem yet. So some of the pieces work on-prem, but like page transformation is something that only works for online at this point in time. But that's good feedback.
Okay, but bottom line is 2016 on-prem cannot have a modern.
Correct. 2016 does not have modern.
Yep. What about publishing pages?
That's coming.
We will get to that. Let's proceed.
Okay, I just wanted to kind of run over the site that we created, just to kind of confirm on things. So we have the footer, modern version of the footer. You also see that we group connected the site. So once the site is group connected, it can benefit from any group connected service, like Teams. So you see this at the bottom left, we light up the option for you to kind of connect to a team. So that's a great feature. Remember that we had that custom list with the color boxes, the drone editions, so our colors of the drones that we sell. And let's exit classic experience, otherwise I was a little bit faking. So let's show the real modern experience, and voila, again color boxes. This is a modern customization doing the same thing. By the way, there's a tutorial on the SharePoint framework documentation, AKLMS/SPFX, that's an easy one to remember. That does kind of guide you through how to take an old customization and build something modern. So you can easily kind of learn there and practice those things and then apply them to your organization. And finally, let's have a look at our pages. So we looked at the D95 page. Now, just let me zoom in a little bit so you definitely see it. So we have two pages now. So we are not kind of overwriting your existing page, we create a new page. The original page is being renamed to previous _ D95, and we created a new one. So you can always go back and look at that, or potentially even flip back and flip to the old page if the modern is not good enough for you. But when looking at this, the modern is actually better. Looks the same content, everything is nicely transformed and migrated. We switch from the old Excel web part to a new Excel web part. The table is there, so we can handle almost all web parts that are commonly used in this transformation process.
If you have custom web parts in Classic, there's going to be some challenges, right? And so we want to make sure that it's not destructive, and so we keep your original page. And so you should feel pretty comfortable going in and experimenting. You're going to be able to go in, try it out, roll back to a different page if you want, and so on.
Right. Plus, there's also an option like this demo. Like I made the decision, I give every user a modern page. So we just take the modern page as being the final one. There's also an option that we put a banner on top of the page. The banner kind of allows the end user to accept the modern page or not. So you kind of say, I create a site for my end users as a modern site, and then they can decide whether they like the page or not.
Great.
All right, let's go
Good.
back to slides then.
Okay. So, one of the things that I hear a lot when I talk to customers is, but why would I want to go modern? I've spent my time, I have my classic pages, they do what I want, they work for me, and to be honest, that's great, right? Like, I'm super proud of the fact that we have hundreds of thousands of enterprises that are happy with their SharePoint today. And so in some ways, it's a bit of a hard conversation for me. But the truth of the matter is, if you run enterprise scale software, you need to be forward-looking. You need to think about where this is going to be a year, 2 years, 3 years down the road, and you don't want to keep digging a deeper and deeper classic hole, if that analogy works. The way you want to think about this is, you know, SPO is the place where Microsoft is making the investments. It is absolutely true that Classic is supported. That was the first thing that I said. But it is also true that it's just supported. The place where we're investing, the place where you're going to get the latest and greatest technology is going to be in modern. And so you need to have a strategy on how to get there. That's not to say that everything has to be modern. It's not to say you have to do it tomorrow. But the sooner you start planning, I think the better you're going to be. So some of the reasons why you really do want to be in modern. Performance and security, that is really foundational to the way we run our service. We take care of that. We build it in a way that we feel comfortable with the performance and the security and the scalability, because at the end of the day, we are the guys running that service. And so back in the old days when you used to install 2003 on-prem, you got the CD and we were kind of hands-off. That is no longer true, right? We are hands-on 24/7, and so we take that responsibility. That should be a big bonus for you guys. Modern, we've made huge investments. Hopefully you saw Jeff's keynote this morning. Just the experiences that we're delivering in modern. We know that the future is going to be an evolution of the thing that we are building today. It's not an evolution of classic, right? And so as the service grows, as the service changes, you want to be there. Cloud first, I mentioned that. And then the customizations in modern, one of the things that people say to me is like, well, but I can do that in classic. And it's like, you might be able to do that in classic, and yet the things that you did in classic tend to be fragile and brittle, because when you make customizations in classic and we move the service forward, we don't know what your code was doing, right? We tend to break classic customizations. We hear that feedback a lot. We apparently do that often. So when you make customizations using the modern framework, using the SharePoint framework and using other modern tools, we know what those customizations are, or at least we know where they are on the page, right? Mm-hmm. The modern footer, the modern header, the nav, all these extensions, we protect them and make sure that we don't clobber your code. And so if you're going to be doing things that are custom in modern, you can feel confident that the service isn't going to beat them up, as opposed to when people were, you know, injecting code and scraping the screen and doing all sorts of things, and then we would break you. So from an enterprise perspective, you need to have a strategy. I'm not saying you need to do it tomorrow, but you need to start thinking about how you get yourself to modern. It's the place that you want to be.
Can I ask a quick question?
One quick question. Yes, sir.
So the modern design is automatically responsive, or do you
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Good
The
question.
question is the modern design responsive? Yes. So that's one of the many things that you're going to get out of the box is responsiveness as well as a long laundry list of things. But yes. What, sorry?
So,
Connected web parts.
yeah. Question is, what about web part connections? Currently, the transformation framework does not take over the connections, but we do ship like a modern web part connection framework. So modern web parts can be connected nowadays, quite recently. Yeah, so we have some options there to connect them, but we're not yet transforming from the old to the modern connected web parts. That's something that we should look at, actually. It's good feedback.
Okay, let's...
All right. You saw the modern team site after the customization, after the modernization. Now, let's try to decompose that team site a little bit. What does it mean, modern? Is modern just a modern, newly created site? No. Modern is a set of features. So we have pages. So you see some modern pages over there. Modern is also being group connected. So when you modernize, you have a choice to group connect your site. You don't have to group connect all sites, because a group is connected at the site collection level, not at web level. But once you group connect, it kind of opens up for all the group connected services. So popular services are Planner, Yammer, Teams, Outlook, Stream. You need to have a group for your site if you want to use those in your site collection. Modern is also modern lists and libraries. These are responsive, fast, have built-in formatting, list formatting, view formatting. So really cool modern lists. I think in the keynote this morning, you saw some really cool examples of modern lists and libraries. That is also modern. And finally, customizations can and should be modern as well. Now the point I want to make here is that these are features, meaning you can enable these, the ones that you need on your classic sites. You don't have to enable them all, but if your classic sites need modern lists and libraries, light it up. Now this one, we kind of pushed modern lists and libraries quite hard as of April. So normally all of you should be using modern lists and libraries in your classic sites unless you purposely opted out of that. But I think
Anybody opt out? Anybody opt out from modern lists and libraries in their classic online site? One, two.
A few.
Okay. So the vast majority may not even realize that you're using modern lists and libraries.
Right?
There's a question in the back.
So we've been using SharePoint 365 for a couple of years, and it seems like the sites that we built, even as recently as maybe the fall of last year, are
Classic.
So what was the cutoff at what? So now we have all these sites that aren't connected. You know, I know that we can do it, but why did, or what was the decision tree to now have something new, and will the modern sites always remain the modern sites? Will that be the foundation moving forward? Like,
Yeah. So
I felt there was little information about like, oh, your site's now going to be different.
So, if I can repeat the question, you've been using SharePoint Online, the default was classic sites, modern sites showed up. What happens going forward? Will modern sites continue to be the thing, or will some other new type of site come at some future date, and why did we not help you with the classic sites into modern sites? Is that a fair? Okay. There's a lot there to unpack. Let me try and do it in less than a minute, and if I take too long, we will move on. So modern sites are the way forward. I mean, I can't tell you they're going to be the way forward forever, because who knows where computing is going to be in 10 or 20 years. But the nature of modern sites is what allows us to feel confident that it is the long-term strategy. The tech that we're using there, the way that we've modeled the architecture, the fact that it's not hierarchical and it's sort of this flatter hub and spoke model, the fact that it's using simple, standard web front-end technology where the developer model, the frameworks, all of that is what makes us feel good about this being the long-term strategy.
Yep.
Why did we not flip the default on you? Is because if we would have woken up one Monday morning and suddenly all sites were modern, we would have never heard the end of that. So we let classic be classic. We put modern out there, we let people adopt it, we let the technology get solid, and now we're saying, look, we feel really good about modern, we need to help you get there, and that's what this talk is about. So I don't imagine that we're going to have a similar talk to this in 5 years where we go, how do we get to postmodern, modern? That shouldn't be the,
No.
I will not be on the stage doing that. Yes, sir.
Yeah, can I just ask one thing? It's a little bit more complex in one sense because the ribbon seems to disappear. There's functions on the ribbon that disappear, and also
So I'll try and recap it in a nutshell, so I won't repeat it all. Geez, you guys took some stuff away. Is that basically? Yeah, okay. Yes, that is true. That was part of the exercise. So we didn't do that just nilly-willy. We looked at the data, we looked at what people were really using, we looked at what is truly scalable in a service, we looked at, you know, what do we need to do to be able to guarantee some of the things that I claimed in my previous slide, right? Like, I want to make sure that it's secure, I want to make sure that it's backwards compatible, I want to make sure we don't break you. And so we made some choices. We also saw that people don't use all the features we give you. We also heard, you know what? There's so many features there, it's just really complicated. And so it was a very deliberate choice to sort of narrow down the functionality and make it sort of the 90% use case. That is not to say it will be everything for everybody. We acknowledge that. So in hindsight, we are going back and filling in some features that we didn't have on day one of Modern. And you know, you can see that as we go through it. Connected web parts didn't exist. Footers and headers didn't exist when we first rolled out Modern. A bunch of, you know, being able to do third-party web parts took us a little while to get you there. So we are evolving Modern, but we're evolving it within the framework that we've delivered. So some of that stuff is maybe still to come. Some of that stuff will maybe never come. So we'll be really blunt about that.
I'll add one thing to that. So custom buttons is possible today already using SharePoint framework extensions.
See, we keep adding stuff,
so
I don't even know.
you can add your custom button in the list or in the pop-up menu on the list item.
So one last question and then we need to move on.
Yes.
We have some classic sites which are tied to AD groups and SharePoint groups for permissions. So when you say we connected to an O365 group, you know, is the script that you just showed, does that take care of that? If not, what is the roadmap
Okay.
and how do we know?
So the question is, I have a site which uses AD groups to secure the site, and then when you group connect, what happens? So the script that you saw that I used does take SharePoint owners and add them to the group owners, take SharePoint members, add them to the group members, if they're not an AD group. So if they're an AD group, the script doesn't do that. The reason why is because currently Office 365 groups of groups in Azure AD can't have another group as being the owner or a member. Once you have that feature, we can do that.
So depending on the scenario, it may or may not work for you.
Yes.
And we're still working on delivering more features, I think.
All right.
Okay.
Let's move on. Team site modernization. You saw the demo, but what really happened? So we had our team site having list and libraries, pages, customizations in SharePoint Online already. And we did what we call an in-place transformation. So we actually kind of upgraded that site from classic to modern. Doing so meant enabling modern list and libraries, enabling modern list customizations when needed, transforming the pages, you saw that. We talked about Group Connect. Once you do Group Connect, you can also teamify. So we have those groupify, teamify, those words, but that's marketing. And finally, potential customizations. Now, in the beginning of the session, Dan asked who is using on-prem, and like half of the room has some on-prem pieces. Now, what if my team site today is on-prem? What can I do? How do I do that? And currently, the best option that you have is use Microsoft migration tooling or ISV tooling and bring the site to online and then there do like an in-place modernization. We are working on extending the SharePoint migration tool to also do some page transformation inside the tool. So today, the SharePoint migration tool will take the wiki page from on-prem and bring it to online, but we will further extend it to also immediately kind of give you the modern version of a page. So that's work in progress. But this is the model that we advise. Now, this takes time and effort from you. It's not like a free thing that just automatically happens. So you need to spend some time on this. Spend your time wisely. Don't modernize each and every site in your organization, or you can do, of course, but modernize the sites where it makes sense, things which are in use. No point in modernizing your archived sites that you haven't looked at for the last 5 years. Don't do that. Just take what is relevant. We already had a question around portals. So publishing page transformation. SharePoint migration tool 2016. I think we are announcing 2010 support. So 2016. No?
The answer
Okay.
is no. He just asked somebody. The gentleman that was in the previous session asked somebody. No.
So thanks for helping out.
There you go. We'll put credit for you in the video. Okay.
All right. Team sites versus portal. If you have a portal today, a classic publishing portal, you might recognize this type of structure. Subsite after subsite after subsite after subsite. Deep nested hierarchies of subsites, which is the way that we kind of taught you to do things actually. Like 6-7 years ago, Dan actually
I might
sold
have been
you to
on
that
stage.
model.
I might have been on stage explaining
Right.
that structure. Yeah.
Right. But today, we do something different. We create individual site collections and we join them to a hub. In this case here, the finance one is the hub, and payroll, policies, pay stubs, etc. are site collections joined to that hub. It gives you kind of a similar structure, but this is way more flexible because I can take one of these and move them to another hub.
Yeah.
So-
I think what's really important here is there's a few things going on. A, as Bert mentioned, it's not for free. You're going to have to do some thinking. You're going to have to make some decisions. You're going to have to think about what hubs get which spokes coming into them, how you're going to flatten these hierarchies. I believe that is actually a good thing. Yes,
Yeah.
it's not free, but it's an investment that you're going to make into getting a much more flexible structure so that as your business changes, you will be able to go and make changes to your SharePoint environment. Today, if you split a team, or if you acquire a company, or if you sort of offshore something, those hierarchies are just so difficult to retrofit. This new model with hubs and spokes, you're going to be able to take something and say, oh, we reorged and that division now belongs over there, and you can move it to a new hub. When it connects to a new hub, you're going to be able to say, inherit the branding from the hub, and now it looks and feels like another member of that hub. So this is the way forward. This is why, to that previous question, we feel confident that this is a long-term strategy because it's flexible.
Absolutely.
Can we hold off on a few questions so we can get a little further, and then we'll come back?
Okay, moving on. Let's talk about publishing portals. Imagine we have our classic publishing portal with subsites, many subsites potentially. Similar structure to a team site, we have lists and libraries, we have pages. This case is publishing pages. We might have customizations. Different than a team site is now that we do a cross-site transformation. So a team site can be kind of upgraded in place, a publishing portal cannot. Reason why, Dan talked about it already just before, you have a new structure, a new information architecture. You go from one site collection to different site collections with connected to a hub. You still can have content types and fields and all those things. They're perfectly fine in the modern world as well. You have modern site page content types. But essentially, you redesign your information architecture, which you see at the right side over here. So I have two site collections. One is the hub, the other one is joined to the hub. Once I have that, things are kind of the same as a team site. Okay, you enable modern lists and libraries. Now, since this is new sites, communication sites based, you already are using modern lists and libraries, so it should be good. You modernize your publishing pages. So we actually, with the May release of PNP, also G8 publishing page transformation support for that. So I'll show that in a demo in a second. And potentially customizations again. What with on-prem? Your portal on-prem looks the same as the one in online. Again, similar story, you have to move it first. So we don't yet have like a technique that can automatically go from on-prem directly to modern communication sites. We are, however, looking into this in the community, so there is some community feedback around, well, can't we just take the page over here and directly move it into a modern communication site? And technically speaking, there is options, so we are kind of investing that to potentially have this as a new feature in page transformation going forward, but no timelines, no promises, but meaning if I like it, I probably will get it in there.
I think I think what I would like you folks to take away from this slide is there's an effort required to move from on-prem to the cloud, but you can get to the cloud in a state that looks and feels just like your on-prem environment. If you stop there, please don't start. Like, there's not a whole lot of point in moving yourself and ending up essentially after a bunch of work right where you were to begin with. What you want to do is start this process, look at this cost as an investment that gets you to this end state where you want to be, right? And yes, there's this two-step hop, and yes, you're going to need to do some thinking about how you re-architect your information architecture, but don't think of it, and I don't say this lightly, don't think of it as a cost. Think of it as an opportunity to reimagine what you want this new thing to be. Because if it's just going to be a cost, people are going to stop at step 2 there and go, oh, we're in the cloud. Don't do that. That's just not a good project for anybody.
Yes, so with that, let's do a demo.
Okay.
Switching the machine. Okay. We have, to start with, a classic publishing portal. I tried to design something. You can argue whether my design skills are good or bad.
Tried to design something classic. Designing classics is hard, right?
Sounds so weird, but anyhow, a homepage, having summary links, web parts, showing some links. This is a content by query web part, rolling up information. So let's take a look at one of the pages. Let's take this D88 page. So it's loading up. So this is a classic publishing page. I can actually put it in edit mode just to talk you through that one. Loading, loading. Here we go. So classic publishing page has metadata defined. So you see this fields as metadata. It has some rich content, images, a roll-up image. It can have content which is fixed on the page. So classic publishing pages are based on a page layout and a master page. And together, the page layout and the master page with the page data give you the page. Now, people tend to put like a fixed piece of content in the page layout so that all the pages based upon that layout have that particular piece of content in it. So, which is this piece here in this example. And web parts. So you can have web parts on publishing pages as well. So this looks to be like a fairly decent page with some good complexity. Now let's see how we can move this page forward. So what I already did is I created the model information architecture. So we have a communication site and even another communication site joined to this one as a hub. So you see on top here the hub navigation. This is the HR subsite going back to the root site, to my root portal. So imagine that you have multiple subsites that kind of now become multiple site collections joined to that particular hub, and they will appear at the top navigation over here. But this is empty. If you go to the pages, it's empty. There's nothing there yet. So let's see if we can transform those pages. So identical to similar to the previous demo, I'm going to actually just launch the transformation step, and then once it's running, let's have a look at the code. So it started up.
Well, one thing that's important, right, we're not just glossing over and saying, oh, it was pre-built. You will need to pre-build it, right? Like that is part of this exercise. You will need to go make your modern information architecture and then decide which things land where in this new world, right? So it wasn't just that we're cheating on stage and saying it was already built. It's like you will also need to do that.
It's on purposely
It's
built.
on purpose pre-built.
Right. But what you can automate is the bulk of the work. So once information architecture is done, once the pre-build is done, you have thousands of pages. You can do the manual, but that takes a lot of time. And that's where the page transformation really is handy and actually quite simple to use. So this is a PNP PowerShell script. We connect to our site collection, so to the classic site collection. This connect on PNP online statement. Then we use the convert to PNP client-side page commandlet, specify the page name, specify my target, so my new communication site. Remember, we go cross-site to something new. And that's it. So specify the target, and it starts to run. So I have a couple of pages in here, and actually I have the same for the sub-site. So the sub-site is transformed into a different site collection. So we go, in this case, to the HR site collection over here. But that's how it works. So basic, simple script to modernize the pages. So let's see if it's done, and it seems to be done. All right. Let's go back over here. Let's already refresh the UI. So you see these new pages are being added. A few seconds ago, the D88 page was added. Let's open up the page. And it's the same content.
Oh, come on.
Yeah. Oh, but you really can clap for this because it's the same content, but it looks so much more compelling and beautiful than a previous page. And literally, it's the same content, so I didn't hack anything. That's exactly the same. It's migrated. So.
But does it work on a phone?
It works on a phone.
Of course, because it's modern.
Yes.
Of course, it works on a phone.
But then you can.
Okay, we're trying to get through content, but yes, one more quick question. Modernize root site collection.
Question, modernize root site collection. So the answer is, I'm ex-consultant, yes and no. So the yes part is, if you're not using publishing features in your root site collection, then we are rolling out a feature that you can, via PowerShell, upgrade that one to be a communication site. And that's being rolled out right now. If you, however, have enabled publishing capabilities, then you have to wait for now. Or do some, yeah.
Okay, I really don't want to keep taking too many more, and I cut someone off over there, so I feel bad. But, okay, one more, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, I can ask this later. Do you guys anticipate seeing a replacement for master pages and page layouts in the future that will force unique or common structure on the information?
So we have page designs.
Yeah, question about page layouts, master pages going forward.
Yeah.
So master pages, no. Page layouts, page designs, yes. So we already have page templates, which we also rolled out quite recently. So you can take any page and say, this is a template, and then your users can start from that template. Today they can indeed delete everything, but that's something that we're looking into, like having like fixed sections on the page where they can't delete anything anymore.
So not yet. We understand the problem. We're not making promises. It's not our feature, but we get it. Hint, hint.
Right.
Okay, let's keep going.
Flip back to the slides.
Okay, back to the slides.
Save some time.
Okay, so
The picture time, the URL that you need to remember.
this is it. This is
The
where
one that
you
you
all
had
need
to
to
write
be.
down.
When you go home, you need to spend some quality time here. While you're there, say hi to Bert, because he spends a lot of time there.
If there are a lot of layout pages, custom layout pages in classic site, do we need to change something into those scripts to match them?
So, really good question. The question is, I have custom page layouts in my portals. Do I need to do something about it? So by default, we try to create like a page layout mapping, but you can also tailor that mapping as an XML file, and you can exactly say like this piece of content goes over there, etc. So there's full control for you as the person migrating to handle that. Yeah, go ahead.
And what about
So let's take offline. Sorry.
Okay. So the way that, I'm not going to read through this, you guys, the way that we really encourage folks to think about this is start with the North Star. Like, where do you want to be? What do you imagine that end state that I said, if you're only going to just move to classic online, please don't. Like, you want to have a plan that gets you to modern. It's okay if it's a bit of a longer plan. It's okay if there's a couple of, stops along the way. But the intent has to be to get to modern. So think about your North Star. Think about where you want to be, because that's the decisions that you make up front is what's going to, having that North Star is going to influence the way you make the decisions up front about what you're going to do, that information architecture and so on. Don't move everything, right? It's not necessarily true that 100% of your things need to be modern tomorrow. Gentleman over here I wouldn't encourage people to still run 2003, but the truth is there are some things that just sit in archive, and that's okay. So move those to the cloud so that you can eventually turn off that server, but it's not the case that you have to move them all. And then I think it's really important that one of the differences between modern and classic is that we were very deliberate about the tooling. The tool chain that you use, you do not have to be a SharePoint developer. You probably want to have some people in your org that understand the SharePoint architecture, but you should be able to get front-end web developers building these kinds of things, right? These are using commonplace, industry standard web development tools, which is unlike SharePoint ever was in the past. So.
Right, I want to add something to that then. Like, even if you today are still using classic pages, for example, do build modern SharePoint framework-based web paths, because they do work on your classic page as well. So why build something that you can't move anymore? Already build something modern, use it on your classic page, and then later on is a seamless transition to modern.
Yeah.
So it's a one-time investment instead of twice.
Yeah, if you're building another web part, your next web part should be modern.
Oh yeah.
Even if it's for classic. That you should make sure you write
that's
that
a
down.
no-brainer.
Everybody should just write that down. Yes. What is the most common type of thing broken during the modernization process?
So,
custom code.
Custom code, you need to rethink that. And there is some differences in HTML, like nested tables is something that we don't support because modern pages do work on any device, and nested tables are not really accessible that much. So there are certain smaller HTML-based things that might be different. But then you have to just edit the page that you get and move on with that page. And you can roll back to the old page if you want.
So depending on the model, if you saw earlier when Bert did, we keep your previous page. So if for some reason you had something that really didn't end up the way you wanted, just revert back to your old page, think about what the next step is going to be. But we hope that that's going to be the rare exception. Okay, call to action. Please stop growing your debt, right? Do not, as I said a second ago, please make everything modern. The inverse of that is please do not continue to build classic. It's just you're going to make more work for yourself going forward when you have to move to modern, okay? Start modernizing where it makes sense. That's what we were just talking about. If you're going to build a web part, please build a modern one. Make sure that you pick your projects. You don't have to move everything all the time. You may never move everything at 100%. And then start now. Like there's just no reason not to start now. Unless you're still on-prem on 2003. Or unless you're still on-prem, period, right? So there's an effort to get to the cloud. But once you get yourself to the cloud, really start now. This is a bit of a journey, but it's an investment you want to make now so that the next time we meet at a conference, we don't have to have this conversation again. Okay, everybody, we'll stick around for a little bit. Hopefully this gets you thinking about modern and gets you going. Next time I do this talk, I don't want to see any of you in the room because you should all be doing modern by then. Okay, thank you.